With the still quite recent release of the Heads Oasis as a replacement of the Dueling Arena, introducing quite a bit of new mid-level content, a lot of discussion was sparked within the RuneScape community about, do we need this? This is a waste of development time. I'm never gonna interact with this besides the completionist requirements. Blah 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 blah. So, do we need mid-level content in RuneScape? Or should the developers just focus on high-level endgame PVM or just in general endgame content? Let's talk about it. I generally think that is the longest intro I have ever done. Anyway, yo, what's going on guys? My name is Jagex here, and today we're going to be talking about mid-level content versus high-level content, and if we need the first mentioned. As with any of my videos, join in with the discussion in the comment section down below. I'm really curious what you guys think. This video sparked from some comments on one of my videos saying that a lot of mid-level content is just dead content in the game, and I just wanted to just explore that idea within this video, give my views on it, give some arguments, and just have a general discussion about it. So definitely join in the comment section down below. Subscribe if you are new. We're still on the road to 500 subscribers. Also to 1,000 eventually. So it's definitely appreciated. Don't forget to ring that bell to get notifications. Blah, 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 blah. Also leave a like on this video because it generally really helps me out. And without further ado, let's get into this video. So, mid-level content. I mentioned a very interesting piece of mid-level content at the start of the video being Heads Oasis, but I pretty much consider everything mid-level that is pretty much pre-max. Like, everything that is not like below max cape or just, you know, below level 90 or something that doesn't give very high XP rates or doesn't give very high profits, I see as mid-level content. And I know that doesn't apply to all mid-level content, because you could say that Big Game Hunter is mid-level content and you can make quite a lot of money doing Big Game Hunter, but I don't think a lot of max players are going to interact with Big Game Hunter unless they going for specific items, if they're going for totem pieces, or if they're, you know, wanting to really do it for the Metox. But I feel like there are better money makers out there than Big Game Hunter. But hey, that's not what this video is about. This is about mid-level content and just putting it like kind of against high-level content, because let's be real, right? Jagex can only work on this much content within the game. As of me making this video, and probably when this video comes out, the new Abyssal Creatures will be released. As of me making this video, they haven't been released yet, but I'm pretty sure they will be released when I'm releasing this video, because I'm recording this in advance, because I'll be gone for a week, so I can't record videos, and I definitely want to leave you guys with some videos to listen to whilst I am gone, but they will be released, and I feel like that is more end game PVM or high tier, high level content, and I think a lot of people interact with it. The new tier 92, the new armor spikes, like it generally introduces something very interesting to the game compared to the Heads Oasis, which you could say introduced the Holy Scarab Familiar, which is useful in very niche situations. Some of those powders are really good, like the prayer training one is really good, and the penance aura powder is really good, but besides that, it didn't really introduce anything with it that like people really wanted to do besides the completionist requirement. So should Jagex waste, as people would call it, development time on mid-level content? And I think it's such a difficult thing to say, because I would argue that the majority of people that watch YouTube content, that is on Twitter, that goes on Reddit, that, you know, interacts with streamers, just the vocal people within the community, I feel like the majority of them are higher level or longer, like people that have been playing the game for a longer amount of time compared to like newer players. Like when I'm a newer player in any other game, right, at least me personally, I first like get into the game, I play the game for a little while, I might look up a guide here and there, but in general, I don't really look further than the general boundaries of the game. Like I just enjoy the game for what it is, and then if I'm really into the game, I'm starting to look into like what people think about the game. I'm starting to get into the things like, oh, what else can you do in the game, and like kind of expand from there on out. And I think a lot of people, like a lot of just casual players, do that as well. So I feel like the people that are on Twitter and just are just in general like on social media are probably higher level players that have an opinion on the mid-level content because it doesn't apply to them. And as I said, this idea sparked from a comment that I got. I will look it up, whose comment it was, and I'll put his name on screen if I don't forget. Thank you for the comment, really. He was mentioning about how Menopause is like dead content, right? Because it was supposed to be this big, like, pretty much Prifdiness for mid-level players. But I think that is a bit of a bad comparison, because I feel like Prifdiness is, I know it's like a more higher goal, but 75 in most stats is not that difficult to get in 2022 with all the high XP rates that we got, and especially with the double experience events that we have. It's not that difficult to get 75, so I would say that getting to Prifdiness is like a good mid-level goal, which kind of makes Menopause irrelevant for a completely different reason, because, well, why would you spend time to fully unlock Menopause when it probably takes less time or just the same amount of time to unlock Prifdiness? But it did really spark this idea of if we need mid-level content. And as I said, high-level players are more vocal on social media. So maybe Jagex actually has numbers of the people who interact with certain pieces of content. I think that they can see within their stats maybe whether people interact with like level 70 or level 80 content or level 60 content, and how many people do that, or the average like total level of each player. Like, they can probably see those things when they go sit around the table and talk about what content they're gonna do for the next year. Like, I would assume they have that data, right? So maybe they do have the data that they're more mid-level players than we actually think. To be fair, I would say they're more mid-level players than I even think, because I think there's more than a lot of people think, but I think there's even more of them than a lot of other people think, if that's still making sense, because I get so many comments on most of my videos talking about, oh yeah, you explain things very easily. Oh, thank you for explaining these to me and to a lot of other people. Very obvious like things that are in RuneScape. And when I made a guide on double experience, like I got a lot of people like commenting saying, oh dude, it was very useful. I didn't know these things. I'm like, how did you not know these things? Like, I thought like half the things in that video were obvious. Obviously, I made it because I didn't think it would be that obvious to a lot of people, like some of the things. But even the things about proteins and like buying in things and like how to buy things for double experience was new to people. And I was like, oh, whoa, okay, maybe there are more mid-level players than I think. And I also got a lot of requests to do like guides where you even go over which abilities to use during boss fights and what. And I was like, okay, so that's not common knowledge either, which is completely fine, don't get me wrong, and I'm willing to explain it, and I will do that in future videos. And I think that is just interesting to think about. Like, maybe there are more mid-level players, and maybe we should cater to mid-level players, because if there's too much of a gap between the early game and the mid-game and the end game, then it would become a big grind for people to get to the end game. And, you know, maybe it would also make it nicer if it's more a gradual progress. Like, I think archaeology is the perfect example on how to do a skill. Like, for pretty much every level, which is a bit excessive, but even so, like, for every single level, you go to a new place or to a different spot and you interact with new content every single level. We don't have to have that for every skill, but if you have, like, every couple of levels, you're interacting with new content, especially with gathering skills, I think that is a good thing. And I think that makes more, like, training methods viable and more things interesting for more skills within the game, and making it a more gradual progress, and for people not to skip over things. Like, for example, Hunter. You get to 63 in whatever method, then you skip 12 levels to either 75 or even 83 if you just want to do aquatic Yajinkos. And then you go to 99 and you pretty much interact with like 3 pieces of content, even though there's this whole slew of things within the Hunter skill. And that happens with a lot of skills in general. I mean, bank standing skills are more difficult to do so. Because, you know, items that are being sold and items being useful, etc. But with any gathering skill, this argument could be made. But if there's not content there it just isn't interesting. And it makes it even more difficult because as an Ironman, for example, you interact with way more content than you do with a main, because you have money and it's grand exchange and you could just skip past things, right? So it's such a difficult thing to think about. So should Jagex even focus on mid game, or should it focus towards the like end game player? And I think they should look at their stats, the stats that we do not have, and see like what kind of content is needed and what kind of like updates that the game needs and what they think is healthy for the game. Because we might think about the short term of the game, like maybe the majority of people now are like higher level players, but maybe they do something in the future that will get a lot of new players into it. Like, I know there's been talk about somehow getting this game on consoles. I don't know how that's going to work, but if they're going to do that, then it will get a lot of new players into the game. And I feel like then there should be a good amount of low level and mid level content for people to interact with, so they can really enjoy the game and start like growing the game with those people. Because if you get people in low and mid level content, then the more players that are interacting with it, like, they are sticking around to the end game eventually, and we will get more end game content, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of a snowball effect throughout like the ranks of games. Like, we need the low and mid level players to eventually get high level content, because if we don't get enough low and mid level players, we won't get enough of an influx of new players, because we need new players to still keep this game alive in 5 to 10 years and have endgame in 5 to 10 years, if that makes any sense. So I think it's such a difficult thing to pinpoint and actually accurately say, okay, we do not, or we need mid-level content. And I think Jagex right now has a good balance. I think the majority of content still that we get is endgame content, because I remember when I was not maxed, I couldn't interact with a lot of the new content that was introduced because I didn't have the levels, I didn't have the gear, I didn't have everything. And now that I am in the end game, I can interact with everything that releases because I have the gear, I have the stats, I have most of the quest requirements or diary requirements or whatever you need for the new content. Like with the new abyssal creatures, I will have every requirement for every creature besides the highest one. So even so, I cannot even interact with everything just yet. And I've been playing this game for 16 years. And I'm working on it, don't get me wrong. And eventually I will do. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion. And I don't have a like end game, or like I don't have a full set answer on this discussion. So I'm very curious what you guys think in the comment section down below, as per usual. If you did enjoy this video, however, consider giving it a like. It generally really helps me out with the algorithm. As I said, really join into the discussion with the comment section down below, because I'm very curious what you guys think. Do we need mid-game content? Do we need only high-game content? Should we just trust Jagex? Because, I mean, I think we should trust Jagex, because over the last 2 years they've been doing a great job, in my personal opinion. Yeah, but yeah, that is it for me. I'm starting to ramble now. Subscribe if you're new, and yeah, my name's Jagex, and see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.